Hey, welcome to a Deal Structure Sunday here. That's going to be different. I find myself saying that lately because Ryan and I work real hard at twisting these up and making sure you see all kinds of different stuff. This is different because for the first time, literally in my career, 30 years, and literally in the terms business, we've never had to do this either, we had a transactional fund, this deal. Let me set the scene for you before I show you the flow of some agreements and the settlement statements, because I want you to see that it's real. This stuff happens. So we had a sandwich lease agreement we put together back in 2014. I'm going to show you some high points of it in a second. In that sandwich lease agreement, the relationship was pretty cool with the seller, but at that time in the market and in their life, there was no equity left in this house. So we needed a long term. So that's set the scene number one for you. Number two, coincidentally, this seller was moving to a different town where they could get into a school system for their son and did a rent to own with us and cashed it out in like 11 months. Very successful buyer. So what happened to the relationship? Well, sellers tend to get amnesia, and what happened is 7 years later, as you'll see in the numbers in a minute, there was profit. They weren't getting anything, right? This begs a few things for me to explain to you. Number one, they will get amnesia. Make no doubt about it. Some of your sellers will. So what do? You make sure in a sandwich lease you have on file recorded a notice of option. It is your only protection. If your attorney wants to call it a real estate memorandum or lien or whatever else you want, you're clouding title. We call it a notice of option. Without that notice of option, we would have been even worse off than the curveball we were thrown, okay? So with that as a little bit of a backdrop, let me show you how this deal started. So as I said, the market was not giving them any equity at the time. This was 2014, as you can see. I posted the actual agreement here. This is the signed, executed sandwich lease agreement. And it called for, see where it says July 14th it started, it's for 82 months. Okay, so that means on or before 82 months, regardless of our regular buyer, our first buyer cashing it out, or we sell it off conventionally, it doesn't matter how we get there. We have to cash them out on or before the 82 months, okay? So with that as a backdrop, that was signed. They're all happy. If we scroll down a little bit further in this agreement, you're going to see that this did have a little nuance. This had a couple things going on here. First of all, that we owed, they owed the bank $184,000 at that time in space, okay? So for those of you that are new, a sandwich lease simply says to a seller, on or before, in this case, 82 months, we will pay off the underlying debt that is today $184. It won't be that, as you'll see in a few seconds here. And we will give you any equity we agree on. Well, in this case, remember I said there is no equity. We're just dealing with a mortgage, okay? Now, one little twist. In addition to this 184 mortgage here, these guys had a window lien on their property. And what happens then is usually if you're going to enter a lease agreement and there's a lien somewhere else on the property for another amount, but they're not getting any money at the end, that's a little risky. Because it could come to the end of the term, 82 months, and they say, oh, I just didn't pay it off. I couldn't pay it off. And they give you a sob story. If there's money coming to them at the end of the sandwich lease, I don't care what the lien is. I really don't, as long as it's less than, with some wiggle room, what I owe them on the back end. That's all I care about. So you can see here in section 13, under special provisions. And by the way, all of our agreements are at your disposal. They're in module 11, and that may change over the years, but they're in one of the mods in our academy in the QLS course. You have access to all these agreements. We just did this simple tweak. We said that they have to pay off the lien, and we gave them a date because I didn't want this thing to go on forever, and they said we could pay it off by this date. They just didn't have the cash right away, and they wanted closure on this deal. So we dealt with that, and guess what? They did perform, and they got that lien paid off, okay? Now, let's fast forward here to the end of the term. Literally, we used up the whole term. And you can see, again, I iterated a little bit earlier that the price here is what? Simply the balance of the mortgage. That's it. All right, so we fast forward to the end of the term. What normally happens in a sandwich lease? Just to review, and there are numerous videos here for you guys to watch on how to cash out a sandwich lease. And 700 or so times we did that. What happened here was our attorney called the seller's attorney, as usual, and did what we normally would do. Hey, Mr. Attorney, your seller is now going to go into a direct purchase and sales agreement with our buyer, and we're going to be listed on the settlement statement as an option release fee to collect our profit. To which he said, now I wasn't on the conversation with the attorneys, but this attorney figured he'd play hardball. I don't know why. There was no end result difference here. He said to our attorney, well, no, they have to close on this property. Then they can sell it to whoever they want. And we said, what are you talking about? In our agreement, we have the option to assign to a buyer or do whatever we want to get this thing closed. As long as your seller gets their mortgage paid off, what do you care? He was, I'm going to say, stubborn to be nice, and he basically made us close on this deal. Now, we've since put another clause in our agreements, which you have access to now because we learned a lesson here, that made it ridiculously clear and blunt that this could be, in 17 different ways explained, closed with a third-party buyer. But we don't want to kill the deal, and this seller's attorney saw a lot of money on the table, as you're going to see in a minute. So what was left on that 184 mortgage? You're looking at the actual settlement statement. And over in the 500s there, you'll see Bay State Savings Bank, $123,199 and change. Okay? So that 184 turned into 123 in about 80 months, 82 months. Now, that's the beauty of the sandwich lease, and frankly, the owner financing deals too, where you as the investor, get all of the principal pay down over the term. They were trying to nudge us in every way they could to have us give up some of that money. And we said, no, thank you, we'll close it. How do we close this deal? You're looking at the purchase. Us buying from the seller instead of us letting them sell directly to our buyer for 200 grand, a little less, and us collecting the difference. So we said, okay, we'll transactionally fund this. Just so you know, there are transactional funders that for anywhere between 1% and 4%, they will fund, they'll do it with your attorneys. They'll fund the balance needed. You'll close the deal. Literally within the 24 to 48 hours, you'll sell to your buyer and the transactional funding goes back. Cost you a few points. Not a big deal. Those contacts are out there. We happen to do it with our sister company, Wicked Smart Finance. We happen to have some funds coming in to be allocated to a deal. We used this deal first, and then we reallocated it and went and did another deal. For those of you that maybe never heard of Wicked Smart Finance, again, it's a sister company of ours. It's put in place for, not really for this reason, this was a good Band-Aid, but it was put in place really for the associates in our Wicked Smart community that see a deal, see equity on the table, like a really good deal, but they would normally pass on it because it needed a little bit of money. I'm talking 5 to 50 grand. And so we step in there and we partner with that. Okay, so that's what we did here. We got it closed. Now the seller's out of our life. The seller's attorney with a major attitude who needs an adjustment in more ways than that, he's out of our life. And now we're going to sell to our buyer. I'm going to show you the purchase and sales agreement for that. You can do the math, so I'm not going to bore you with another settlement statement, but here is the executed purchase and sales agreement with our buyer. Remember what our purchase price was, $123 and a couple expenses, and we sold to them for $199.9. This is what caused the seller and the seller's attorney to get amnesia and say, 70 some odd grand, almost 80 grand, why don't I take a look at this and see if I can work these guys a little bit? And they tried hard and we pivoted and got out of the deal. So all that to say that there will be pivots. These deals are always profitable. I will say, with very few exceptions, almost any pivot that you can come across or a speed bump you can come across, all you do is you pick up the phone and you call us, including the Wicked Smart Finance Division. So that was a lot different view for a deal for you, but just know that when the deal is maxed out and there's no equity in it, you can buy it. When the deal is a lien on it, you can buy it. When the attorney throws a curveball and tries to kill the deal, you can buy it. There's always going to be nuance in these deals, and they're fun to work through as long as you have us on your shoulder doing it. Look forward to seeing you in the next Deal Structure Sunday. I will tell you that if you want to just be around this more, get immersed in it more, be around students who are doing it, if nothing else, not to ask questions, but to just listen, come hang out with us every single Thursday. We call it a Wicked Smart Sit Down. It takes place at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is free for you. We might do one of these this week. We might do 5 of these this week. We might go over owner financing this week. I don't know. But you'd be remiss not to join us. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/toolkit. In addition to getting a bunch of free stuff, including scripts and how to talk to people about this stuff, you'll get direction on how to get into the Wicked Smart Sit Downs for free. Hope to see you on one of the Thursday Sit Downs.